Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome to my channel. I'm Mr. Hug, or Harrison Burnside Test Prep. Today we're going to be talking about the agricultural revolutions and everything you need to know about them for AP Human Geography. So if you like my content, give me a like, comment, subscribe so you can see more of this content. So this is going to be key topics 5.3 to 5.5 in your APHuG course and exam description, which teachers know more about that than students. But let's get into the content. So with the first agricultural revolution, this is when we started farming and agriculture as a thing. So here, what we're getting into is plant domestication, animal domestication, and then because of those two things, sedentary living. So let's take a moment to define those. With plant domestication, what you have is people learning that we can put seeds in the ground, grow food from that, and then eat that food. So previously what would happen in the Paleolithic era, which was before this agricultural revolution, was people would go around and hunt and gather for their food with bows and arrows and baskets, and we would pick up berries off the ground. But if you know anything about eating random food from the ground, you probably shouldn't do that because some of the berries can be poisonous. So if we're making our own food that we know is good, then people are able to eat that and not die from that, which is always an amazing thing. So with animal domestication, we have us first realizing that we can keep animals and we can put them in pens or crates or whatever we do now. But back in 20,000 BC, what they realized is we can save these animals and we can get milk from them like cows, or we can kill them for things like beef and cook that over a fire. So when we domesticate these animals, what we're basically doing is taking them and we're just keeping them on our farms, and then we're able to use these animals to get food from. And then with both of these things, we have sedentary living. Previously, I talked about how with the Paleolithic era, what we had was people hunting and gathering food. And that meant that they had a very nomadic life and they moved around a lot. But with sedentary living, what happened was that people realized that we need to be in one place if we want to be able to farm, especially with plants and animals. So with these plants, you had to plant them in a field, and then that field was then attached to your home, basically. And these homes then led to the creation of cities, which you can see down at the bottom. And all of this stuff led to the creation of cities, but we're going to talk about that a lot more in the next unit, especially when we talk about where do cities come from in Mesopotamia. So then next up, we have the second agricultural revolution. And here what we have is that the Industrial Revolution is happening in the United States and all over the world. But really, in the United States is where we're going to get most of our inventions. We have things like the steel plow, we have tractors, and then we also have things that aren't necessarily a tangible technology, but we have innovations and thought. We have things like intercropping, we have crop rotation and all sorts of new field techniques that help us get more food from our agricultural fields. So this is when technology and agriculture first meet together. So this is when we can see that people creating technologies for things like the cotton gin or textile mills, that we can use these in agriculture too. So this does pair with the second industrial revolution in the United States, and that's just really a technical term. You can always call it the Industrial Revolution on this exam. But what really happens from this is we have an increase in food production because of all this new technology and all these new techniques that will lead to a population boom. And that's really important because when we have a lot of, food, then we can feed a lot more people. So people have more babies, and then those babies can survive and be fed. We also have railroads that come in from these new technologies from the Industrial Revolution, and that allowed for the transport of food all over the place. So people were able to move around, and we had cities forming with the Industrial Revolution, and that's really important to know, especially for other history courses. These technologies really did help save time. They were new methods that helped increase the food production by a lot. But when we get into the third agricultural revolution, we're going to talk about how we can increase agriculture even more. So what we have here is the third agricultural revolution, sometimes called the Green Revolution. The AP exam uses them interchangeably. Your teacher might use either one. Both are perfectly fine. So what we have is this guy named Norman Borlaug. So what this guy does is he basically figures out that we can combine this technology and combine it with agriculture and mesh them together to create biotechnology. So this biotechnology, aka GMOs, is what's going to lead to an even bigger increase in agricultural production than our last agricultural revolution. So here with the GMOs, we have these things that can feed a ton more people in countries where agriculture is not happening as much because of soil fertility, desertification, all of those things that we'll talk about later in this unit. So where is this happening? We first see Norman Borlaug in Mexico, and these crops really spread to Asia and India, Southeast Asia and India the most, because we see a lot of rice crops that are able to be GMO-ified. And this is happening in the late 1900s, which is really important context because it's about 100 years after the second agricultural revolution. But if we think back, this first agricultural revolution happened in 20,000 BC. So the time gap between the second and third is a lot smaller than between the second and the first. So what we're seeing here is that this new father of the Green Revolution, Norman Borlaug, is able to get GMOs to where he can feed a lot more people with the same amount of land. And if we know anything about modern society, our land for agriculture is always shrinking. So we want to be able to get more crops from that small amount of land and not have to worry about population growth. Like Malthus said, we are being Esther Boserup with this third agricultural revolution. We are saying that our food production will outlast our population, and this will help fight world hunger, especially in places like Southeast Asia and Africa that are more impoverished and have a harder time growing crops on their land. But this also leads into things like agribusiness and commercial agriculture, which we'll talk about later in this unit. So I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see more of my videos, and have a great day, y'all.